Good morning everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we have dragonflies. A request from one of the lovely ladies that watches my channel, some dragonflies. So I had a little bit of a play and sketched something up, and here we are. So I'll just bring the first one up to the camera. This little guy is in the sideways view. So he's still got his four little wings, but we're looking at the side of his body. And then this little guy is from an aerial view. And this one I added lots of gems and pearls to his back. So pretty happy with the way they've come up. So now in my Etsy store is the templates that you'll need to make the dragonfly. But like always, it's not a difficult sketch. So if you're able to sketch one yourself, by all means, go ahead and cut it out, and then you can start playing. So I'll just pop that to one side and the little guys. And I've got my piece of felt, which I've gone ahead and placed the template on and sketched around with the red pen, which is a heat dissolving red pen, a friction pen from Pilot. So really good for this type of job. So now I can fussy cut out these little guys. So let's do that. If you find that as you trace around your dragonfly, he sort of loses his shape a little bit because the pen is catching on the fabric, don't worry about it, because when you fussy cut it out, you can reshape a little bit if you find that it's just not quite right. So just cut that out. Bear with me. Maybe I should finish the video and come back. I'll finish doing this one, and then I might stop the video, cut out the second one, and then we're ready to go. They certainly are a little trickier to decorate compared to the butterflies, the flowers, the hearts. What are some of the other shapes we've done? Oh, the bunny. And I think it's because those shapes are more solid. These little guys have got distinctive characteristics like four wings. And that tail, that real long, whippy little tail. But if you take your time with it, and just focus on each area, it seems to come together. It's probably a little harder to just do random scraps with these fellows because the shape of their bodies is so defined. So just laying down heaps of bits and pieces is a little bit, yeah, probably can't do that. You've got to have a good think about their structure of their body. Okay, that's the one little fellow. I might as well keep going. That didn't take long. Just don't want to waste precious video time on little tasks that are a little bit mundane, like cutting out these little guys. I don't like to speed videos up. I find them quite difficult to watch. It's like everything scoots past me. It's okay if I sort of know what they're doing anyway, but if I'm wanting to learn something, the speeding up of the video is, yeah, really hard, because then if you want to go back and watch a section of it, it's really hard because they're all sped up. So I try and film everything in real time. I'd rather stop the video, go away, move it along, even if that's, 4 hours work, and then come back, bring you up to speed, and then carry on. I'd rather do that. Okay, coming along, his last wing. Now you could iron it now to get rid of that red. Like heat up your iron and that little red line would dissolve. But I'm not too worried. Just in case I use the red pen again on cutting out a shape, I sort of leave it there. And then at the very end, give it a little press. And that gets rid of it. Okay, there we go. Right, get rid of the templates and the scraps can go in the bin. All right, let's do this little guy first. There's a couple little techniques here that I did that I want to show you, which I think sort of help us build the shape of this little fellow. The first one is his tail. Now you could quite easily just lay a piece of fabric down on the tail, like so, and then just ease it into position and stitch it down. But what I did with this little guy is I actually gathered the tail. So I might just show you that. Just another effect. It gave it more of a chunky, I'm just knotting my needle here, more of a chunky look. So all I did was I got a piece of the calico that I had scrap. How wide is this? It's about 15 mil or just over 1/4 of an inch. Doesn't have to be exact, as long as it's going to cover that little tail of his. And then using my needle and thread, I just went along with a little stitch and I'm going to gather it. So up and down, up and down. How much length to use for your gathering? I didn't actually measure the first time because it's sort of whatever looks right to you. You could have it very gathered, or you could have it just subtly gathered. By gathering it too, it helps you to ease the fabric around the bend of his tail. So just do a couple inches worth and then we'll see where we're at. We can always just do a little quick measure and then finish off the fabric. Okay, let's see. I've gathered that up on my needle. Now I'm just going to push it through, gently pull it through until I get to the knot. That's it. All right, let's see how it goes. That's a thread. Thought it was my thread that I was using, but it's not. It's just a thread from the edge. All right, gather it all up. Probably a little bit more. And then once you get it to the desired length of gathering, it's just a case of knotting it off so that that gathering doesn't slip away on you. And that's his tail done. You could also do that for the center of the second one. It sort of gives you good coverage. And then you've still got space through the center of the gather to put something pretty to denote that it is actually a tail. You'll find that as I go that I sort of decorate them in one sense, but then when I go back and add the detail, that's more thinking about the design of the dragonfly. So you get more of a lineal look in places that you need. It'll make more sense at the end and you'll see what I mean. That really makes the dragonfly pop. So that there is pretty good. We need it to about there. So if I gather that up and knot that. Okay, all right. That's his little tail done. Put that little scrap back in the bucket. All right. Just lay that on there. Gather it all back up. Lovely. now I'll grab some pins and just pin that to his little body underneath, and that'll sort of hold it into position. I think I'll trim it a little bit shorter too at some point. I don't think we're going to need all of that bulk that's there, but we'll leave it for a moment, because until I secure it with a knot, it sort of needs to have that done before you go and cut anything. Okay, I might zoom the camera out too, because I'm working probably a little bit too far away from myself, and I can feel I'm leaning into my space, and it's going to hurt my back in no time. Well, make me all stiff. Let me just zoom the camera back out. That's better. So now my hands are closer to my body. If you want to craft for hours, you gotta look after our bodies, because we get really stiff between the shoulders and the lower back. And yeah, it always pays to take lots of breaks and stand up and go and walk around a little, or go and find a little job to do elsewhere in the house, just to sort of stretch your back out. So it's pretty important. Sustaining injuries from crafting, who would have thought? Okay, what I'm going to do now, as I did with the other ones, is I'm going to lay down some fabric over the rest of the little dragonfly. So how I did that is I just got a series of scraps, and in this fellow I did the 4 wings. So I'm just going to lay that scrap over that one wing, grab my pen, and just roughly sketch, like I can feel where that wing is just by running my fingers over the edge of the fabric. And I can sort of see too that the wing is sitting in behind there. So there's one wing. Then I'm going to cut it out a little bit past those lines, like so. And this is like just covering all the felt with a base. So do that to all the areas of the dragonfly. So that it'll go there. Then another piece of calico. You could use the template, but I'm not going to bother. I want it to look really scrappy. So if the dragonfly actually got a little bit bigger from doing this, it doesn't matter. But if you wanted it to be the true size to the actual template, you could cut out a second template and then cut out all of the petals, not the petals, the wings. So you see how we've covered that now, just with that rough cut. I'm just getting some more calico to rip off another strip. Okay, now let's do the next big wing. There we go. Just a rough, you can feel that it goes right around the top. Just my fingernail tells me that. And when I get down to the body, just bring the fabric down into the tummy area of your dragonfly a little bit, so that way will all tuck in under. Like I said, if you don't feel confident that you can do just a rough sketch like that, you cut your template out again and cut it up into the different areas of the dragonfly, and then draw around it, and then away you go. You've got you're covering your base. Now you could use any fabric for this. You could pick a pink floral. You could really use anything. I did have on the first dragonfly, I think it was the first one, yeah, I had the leftovers of a doily where I'd cut all of the embroidery out of it, and I had the beautiful linen left. Where is it? This one here. And you see the edge of the placemat. So I was using all of those bits and pieces to make it, and it gave it a nice creamy look, and it was a beautiful cotton, gorgeous. So that's the first one, and it really made the lace pop because it had that contrasting colour. And the second one I did this, I just used some calico. Where's some more calico? Will I get the wing out of that scrap? Yes, just. The only thing is there's a selvage on that edge. Yeah, I won't use it because there's a selvage there, so it's sort of just not going to sit nicely. What do I do with my calico? There it is. Okay, the last wing. Feel it there. Here comes my kitty cat. Hello, Fudge. What's the story? It's raining here today in Brisbane, so I would say Fudge has had his breakfast. He's gone out to do his toiletries, and it is raining. Yes, I've just looked at him and he's damp. So he's come back in to say, Mum, I'm not happy. A cat should never get wet. He's just jumped up on my table, and I believe he's making his way over. And he's here. He's just out of shot. But he could possibly come into shot. So, hey, pussycat. So now I'm going to cut the body. Here he comes. There's Fudge. Say hello to everyone, Fudge. Now move along, puss. Okay, bit of a pat. Oh, he's damp. I can feel the droplets on him. Yeah, see, you don't like that. Pussycats don't like water. Well, some do, but this one doesn't. Hey, Fudge. Okay, you better hop down. There's pins and nasty things here that'll hurt you. Okay, now I want to do the body and include that his little head. So let's just lay some fabric on and sketch around the little guy. Kicks in there. And it'll be big enough to hide all of the wing tips that come down. Not that it matters too much because there's going to be lace and all sorts of bits and pieces go onto the little fella. So, you know, at the end of the day, it will be covered again completely just about. But if you start layering things and tucking things under things, it just gives stability to the project. And the more stability you've got on this delicate little guy, the better, I think. So let's cut that around. Now, when I did the first one, I then stitched all this down. I got a needle and thread and did some stitches down every wing, down the center, straight down there, there, and then come across the body, which helps secure everything. It is a good tip because as you pick this up and move it around in your hand, it can wriggle. The second one, I was in a rush. I made this one and this one in the morning, this guy, and then carried on with my day. This is yesterday. And then while I was cooking dinner, I had put the roast veggies in and I raced in here to quickly do this one so that I'd be ready to film this morning. So I didn't stitch down this section, and I had it wriggling everywhere. It still worked, but it took longer. So in my haste, I cut corners thinking I'd save myself time. And of course, it didn't work like that, did it? Isn't there an old saying that says that? I don't know. So I'm going to pin it all now. And then I'm going to go back with needle and thread and just secure down all of the elements so that it becomes one. So I will do that off camera so I don't bore you. But while we're here, let's decorate this little guy. And it's exactly the same principle. Let's cut out each of the wings. When I stitch it down too, I'm then going to go and just rough up the edge. I can hear that cat still. Not happy today about that weather. I'm just going to rough up the edge of all of these wings so they get that nice frayed look. I'm going to bring that down. That's the center of the dragonfly there. So just bringing that down a little bit into his tummy or his back. You can feel that underneath. But, you know, by all means, cut your template out more if you want to get it more exact. But look, we're going to cover it in lace. It's going to be so lumpy, bumpy and exaggerated by the end of it. You know, I don't think it really matters about this. You're not going to see it. Unless you're using, I guess, a really beautiful fabric that you are going to see and you're just wanting to highlight with a few random little bits of lace or stitching or some pearls and beads, well then maybe you should cut it out exactly. Sort of depends on what style of dragonfly you're making, I think. But we're going for that scrappy one, so we've got a little bit of wriggle room here with the structure. And by using cream felt and the calico or muslin, it, you know, hides a multitude of sins. There we go. So I'll get rid of those bits. I'll get some more calico. So we can cut out the next two. So I'm just laying it over. I can feel with my fingers that wing. Now, by decorating this little template, the dragonfly has got bigger because, of course, we've got bits hanging off of him everywhere. So if you have a project and you need the dragonfly a certain size, just remember that when you do this, he is going to get a little bit bigger. So you might need to start with a smaller template, either shrink it down before you print it, or when you fussy cut it out, just cut it a little bit smaller. I shouldn't have done that because I need the separate pieces to sit under each other, and I've just kept sketching. So I'm going to cut this big guy out at the top here, this big wing, and then re-sketch the last wing because I've sketched it as if it's joined, and technically it's not. You probably could do it all in one piece. That probably would work as well, where you just do the whole butterfly, the dragonfly again and lay it on top. But oh well, this is more fun. This makes him look more scrappy, I think. Oh, that pussycat, he's really wound up. I don't know if you can hear him bellowing there. As I've said in other videos, I've got two, Casper and Fudge. They're both Burmese. And Fudge, oh, he's a talkative. I don't think he's complaining, but because he bellows at me all the time, I sort of feel like he's yelling at me all the time. He's probably not. He's probably saying, Mum, I love you. Mum, look at this. Mum, thank you for food. I'm sure that's what he's saying, but it certainly feels like he's saying, Mum, sit down. I want to get on your lap now. That's what I reckon he's doing. Where Casper, he just sits, does what he wants. He's quiet, gentle. He's a good cat. Fudgy is too, but oh boy, he does test me so. Okay, now I'm going to do the body. So there's his little tail. Okay, coming up there. And then his little head. All right, lovely. Okay, I'll cut this out. And that's all the elements to cover our dragonfly. I'll cover the felt. Fudgy, please. See, he's saying, I love you, Mum. Did you hear that? He replied, yes, I do, Mum. Okay. And there we go. The last piece. Now, I'm going to redo this wing. It's just not tucking in under the body. It needed to be a fraction longer, so I might use the wing itself as a bit of a template and just add that little bit extra at the top there, and then the bottom of the wing will slide in under that body piece a little bit better. It would have been okay, but I know that in the center of the body I can see that it just hasn't tucked neatly in under the little piece that is his actual body and head. Okay, so just cut that out like that, and I've got that little bit extra. Okay, that's better. It's just neater. I'm being fussy, but fussy with a scrappy dragonfly. You wouldn't have thought those words would go together. Okay, that's my bases done. A couple pins to hold that into position. I'm going to stop the video and then come back, and all of those elements will be stitched to the base. I'm going to go and see what's wrong with Fudge, because he's obviously got something exciting to tell me, or he's demanding something of me. Okay, that, I think it's because his fur got wet. Here he comes again. Goodness me, Fudge. Okay, that's all pinned down. And what I need now is a needle and thread. All right, so that's the start of them, getting our bases all sorted. I will trim that back. Once I start stitching through there and securing it all, I'll trim that back so the bulk is away from the body of the dragonfly. So that little bit will come off, and then we can decorate. Okay, everyone, let's leave it at that, and then I'll be back to have a little play. Okay, bye. Okay, I'm back. Now I've stitched everything down on the dragonfly, so just using a little tacking stitch. If you're going to let a wing be just the calico, you'd want to make your stitches invisible, where I just did a little tacking stitch over everything, nice and secure, so that now I'm ready to cover it in all my scrappy bits of lace. Now on the back, just check that it's not over exaggerated anywhere from the template, because you might want to do a little trim here and there just to get your structure back if your wing has gone bigger than what you wanted. For example, it has there, but I'm not too worried because it still looks like a dragonfly. So that wing could definitely stay, and down there, it also gives me a little bit more room to add more lace. But like I said before, if you need your dragonfly a certain size, and that template is exactly the size, you might then want to come back and trim it all back to exactly the little template. But I'm going to leave it at that. So now I've grabbed out some of the elements I used on the original one, but not all of them, because it's scraps, you know, I've only got so much of things. So what I did with this little guy is I focused firstly on each wing. I think that's probably the best advice I can give you, because otherwise it just gets too messy crazy, if that makes sense. So I'm focusing just on this section here, which was just one little motif of lace. So I don't have that cut off anywhere in my scraps. I've got the little similar one and then the third little one. So I'm going to use those two. So I'm just going to place that there as that wing. This wing here, this was a piece of lace cut out of that. So all I did was laid it down, worked out roughly how long I needed it to be, which was bringing it down onto the body like so. I used this lace on both of them actually. It's a good substrate to lay down. It's like what we did with the calico. We laid down a layer first. Well, you can do that with some general laces now as well. And it just helps add texture. Okay, so I'm trimming off the edge of the lace, getting rid of that. because that just brings it down to a better size. I'm going to trim a little bit more off the top here to help define the wing. And just lay that down. So that's that one done. I'm going to bring that lace on top of that. Yeah, happy with that. We'll need to trim a little bit off here just to get the shape correct. Okay, so I'm happy with those. Now the wing at the back here on this side was some little scallops. Now that's come from this lace here. Where is it? That lace there. It was part of a collar. Just a collar. That was the bit that went around the top of it. So I've trimmed it off. So now I've got all of these random little shapes that I can use. So I've cut out a little bit here, and we're going to use that one and that one. So all I do is snip it out of the lace. Just keep your eyes open wherever you may be if you're building your stash of goodies for laces and trims that have interesting shapes about them. You don't need a lot of lace, as in length, to build up a bit of a collection. It's just all about different shapes more than anything. So you can sort of collect pieces. That one's the same. That one was already cut out. It's the same as that one. I'm going to go and cut this guy out because he's more of a long shape. And I think he'll sit better because the wing of a dragonfly is getting narrow. So I sort of want that elongated scroll for up the top there. And I can tuck it in a little bit under the bottom wing. That's it. And we need one for his head. So this little guy will go there to show that he's got a little head. Okay, so you can see how I'm just building it up, fiddling around. Now this little snippet here, this is half. Oh no, it's not. How do I explain this? Let's say that's the doily and you've got these little connecting shapes. Well, where there's a border, there's often a shape like that connecting it into a border, so squaring it up. So that's when this doesn't quite meet the edge in crocheting, so they do a little element just to sort of link this guy to the edge, and then in this bigger space would be another one of these guys. So I keep all those random little bits of crocheting. Someone asked me, does your crocheting fray once you start snipping all these little bits apart? Do they fray? No, they don't, because they're so full of knots from being crocheted. It just never seems to fall apart because there's a knot not far from your snipping point. So don't be afraid to snip into it. So that little scrappy bit is just going to go on the bottom of the wing. Now in the center where his body is, I used one of those. It's the little version. So that's going to go there. That helps connect everything together. And then just to decorate, I started looking for buttons and things like that. So I had a little button sit in there. I don't know if you can see that. I think you can. And then some little pearls scattered in around. Now I don't have any more of this trim. So what I'm thinking I might do is using some pearls. When I stitch it all down, I'll create his tail with a few of these big pearls. Or maybe even a size smaller. We'll see how we go. So there'll be some little pearls coming along there, or some little colonial knots. Who knows? We'll see how it comes together once we start getting these elements now stitched down. So what I might do is I'm going to pop a few pins in just to hold everything. So then I can come back with my needle and thread and stitch all of these little elements down. It's very fiddly, but very rewarding. So you can pretty much do all sorts of things on these petally wings. They look like flower petals. Well, you could even do a flower that has very thin petals like this guy, and a heap of them, and each petal is a different lace or crocheted element. That would look gorgeous, or like a daisy. Okay, and his little head. So that should be now all of my bits pinned down, yep, so that I'm ready to take him away and stitch him. Okay, different colours of white, some shiny, some flat, and of course his little tail. So that's that little guy done. So I'll pop him out of the way. Oh, I know what else I was going to talk to you about before I do. This is some of that wool that I've painted with PVA glue, and as it's dried, it's become quite firm. I then am going to cut 2 pieces, probably about 1 inch, fold them in half, and they will be stitched underneath, oops, of his body to create his little legs. They'll be stitched in there to create his little dragonfly legs. Okay, and because they've got a little bit of structure about them, they're no longer floppy yarn, they'll hide beautifully. But if, like with the butterfly pattern, if you were stitching this onto something, you could then stitch his legs into position with some embroidery cotton, or use some little pearls and add the legs after you've attached him to whatever item is that you're going to. So I'll just put him to one side. We'll bring this little fellow in. Now this little guy, I did similar, but a little bit different. Once again, I used this lace to create a base. So I just cut off a piece that was the right length, and then just trimmed it down a little bit, got rid of the edges, curved the top, which just brought it down a little bit in size, like so, and then that became his wing. So we need another one on this side. It's a bit of exact knot measuring, like he's a scrappy fellow, so don't stress the details of his form because he will come together, trust me. Okay, and that's that wing there. Bring it into the center. Move that little guy out of the way. Might just trim that a little bit there, just so it's a little bit more rounded. Okay. Right, so then what I did is I wanted to start bringing in the shape of the dragonfly. If you can see, there's a line there with some lace hanging off of it. It just helped define the fact that dragonflies have very straight wings. So what I'm going to do this time is I've got this little lace and I'm going to run that through the center of the wing. Helps add layer to our little piece. So it's just a case of snipping off enough of it and then laying that through the center of the wing. And then I'll go to the other end of that lace, and I might even use that little flower instead of losing it. Okay, so that will go through the center like that. And I'll just pin that, seeing we've got everything where we want it. Just pop a pin in there. When you embroider it down, you can fiddle around with it a little more, but the pins at least will do the job until you pop a few little stitches through. Okay. That's that and that. So that's those wings done. Now the bottom wings, I wanted a real little peaky edge. So I've got this piece of crocheting from a doily, Now, if you've watched my series using the Jessie Chorley pattern or panel, I've used a few pieces from this doily. That yellow is on the swan, for example. So it's my last little bit. So I'm just going to remove the yellow. Like, that could be used because it gives you the nice scallopy edge. But what I want to do is use this bit. So it's just a case of line up the little scallops so that you can work out where you need to snip. See that scrap of fabric there? I'm not too worried about that. It's going to be covered. So I'm just going to leave it there for now. I'm going to shape that a little more there. Shape that there. And that will pin in. Then the other side needs a piece. And that will fit there beautifully. And then to hide that fabric that's on the top of that crochet ring, like, don't even throw little bits like that away because you never know where you can use them in these scrappy pieces. Now this is just a piece of lace. Looks like curtaining, but it is a elasticized lace. So what I'm going to do is cut myself a rectangle out, and I'm going to lay this over the top of that wing. So I just need to shape it a little bit. Another little scrap. Okay, so I've got a wing shape, and that'll just help disguise the bottom. It's a little bit short. Just going to recut it and add a little extra length. It's probably okay, but I'm just going to reshape it and pop that into there. Okay, and I'll just put a pin in position to hold our elements so that when I stitch it, it's ready to go. Now the bottom wing elements will sit under the top wing. So at the moment I've just pinned them, but when I go to stitch it, I will make sure that this area tucks in under. I might do it now. I'll just lift those pieces and bring them back down. There we go. So this little guy is going to sit there, and we need another piece. I wonder if that will fit this wing. Not quite. Oh, it's close. Just need to take a little bit off of it. It's probably a little bit thick. Get rid of some of that. Now I can lift this section and slide that in underneath. It's fiddly, but take your time. It'll come together. And just pin that down. Because I'm working on this mat, could even be pinned, just stab straight into the mat to hold it. I'm just going to trim that off there to get my shape back on my wings. There we go. Get rid of all these scrappy bits. All right, so now we just need something to go through the center of the little guy. I'm thinking I'll use some more of this. It's got these little curved shapes. So I'm going to trim that off. Then trim this down. Dragonflies do tend to have a bit of a lumpy curved torso. But you don't need to worry if you can't find anything that has that sort of shape, because you can either cut it, you could use needle and thread to pinch it in every so often so it looks like you've got that shape. I'm going to extend his tail a little bit. It'll go past the template. This dragonfly is getting bigger and bigger. So I'm just pinning it all down now. I'll leave the head free. See if there's something else we can add to the top of the head. I've got little bits and pieces here. Maybe one of those little flowers. Yeah, I'm going to cut that little flower off of this trim. And then I might put a pearl in the center of the flower. So that little flower will be at the top. I do have a bead here. I was going to use it on here, but I found the pink one, and then I put pink little legs using some pink yarn that I'd stiffened. So we might stitch that on his back. Then I've got a little bit of the white yarn left over. So that will be his little legs coming out from his body. Okay. So he is looking good. Now I might just bring him up so you can see all of the different layers. So that all now will get stitched down. Now it's just looking at this guy, our first one, and this piece of lace. I'm thinking I might come down the center of that tail. Let me just snip that off and I'll show you. I'm thinking I might lay that down through the gathered tail, and then I could add some pearls. So that'll tuck under there and that will sit down the center of the tail. Does that make sense? I'll just pin it. Where's my pins? Okay, so I will stop the video. I will go away and stitch all these little pieces down into position. And then when I come back, I'll probably add some beads and some buttons and all of those pretty little elements as well. So then when I pop back, the little dragonflies will be completed. But at the moment, everything's pinned, the base got tacked down, so we're now ready just to stitch all these little elements on. I'm really happy with the way they've come up. They look really pretty, and this little guy. Okay, all right, I will be back. I'll stop the video and I'll be back with my progress. Thanks. Okay, I'm back. I've finished the dragonflies, so I'll just bring these up to the camera and show you. So the little gem has gone into the center, and where it's stitched down, I popped two little pearls, and then I continued the line of pearls down the tail of the dragonfly. I mentioned earlier in the video that I like the idea of having these lines, these lineal lines on the dragonfly at the very end. It just helps define the little dragonfly. In real life, their wings are very straight. They're not as, you know, lacy and decorative as this. So I like the idea of trimming them with a bit of a shape that helps your brain look at it and go, yes, that's a dragonfly. And that gem really helps because their body has that curved shape. And then the pearls in a row also helps define the little guy. So I've got everything stitched down, and he's finished. Now this little one, I decided not to put pearls on it at this stage. I've just added a button to where it meets the wings in there. What I might do is, if I do use it on a journal or something and there's a lot of pearls through the journal, I can always come along and pop some little pearls through his tail. But I stitched that lace on and I just let it gather a little bit as I went. It sort of helped to find that that is also gathered underneath, because it did cover up the treatment underneath. So I sort of let that sort of gather a bit. And the wings, I didn't change anything from when we put them together, but they'd be quite pretty to go through and pop some little pearls here and there throughout the little dragonfly. It's just a case of I might wait to see where I use it to see if they're actually needed or not. Okay, so that's the dragonflies all completed. Really happy with them. So the pattern now is up in my Etsy store. It's just the two of them, and if you would like it, pop on over, but you could quite easily draw yourself a couple little dragonflies. They're not hard. It's just getting those four wings and the distinctive shape that is the dragonfly. There's some little dots and lines on the body here that I've left in there because my thoughts was you could potentially bead across the body, or you could do a bullion stitch to help define the segments that is on a dragonfly's body. So I did put some little dots in there when I created the original pattern. So you'll see that also. All right, I'll leave it at that. Now the next Scrappy video that'll be coming in a few weeks will be a little purse, a little satchel that you could pop something inside, even like these little bits and pieces for a gift, or I've got some embroidery bits here that I've been chopping out of things to use in another project. So they could even go into a little satchel as a gift for someone. So the satchel will be next. So if that's something you would like to see, maybe recommend you clicking the notification button, and that way when I post the video in a couple of weeks time, you'll get a little pop-up on your screen to say that the video is up and ready. Okay everyone, look after yourselves, happy stitching, and I'll see you all soon. Bye.